The basis for this, the simplest illustration of this, you had a fellow called Brunelleschi.
Centuries ago, at the time of the Renaissance, skilled craftsmen and laborers looked upwards and built the structures that still touch the human heart.
The basis for this, the simplest illustration of this, you had a fellow called Brunelleschi in the early to late part, middle part of the century. He was a participant in the construction of the great cathedral of Florence, Santa Maria del Fiore. And it was just one part. But also, he was a discoverer in many other respects. Now, the principle of Santa Maria del Fiore, as of cupola, is very interesting in this respect and goes directly to the point of the question, which I'm delighted to answer. Because it deserves it. The Irish deserve something good after all this stuff. Oh, they've been so close to those beastly Brits, you know. They deserve something nice. But anyway, what was the principle? The Brunelleschi discovered that the principle, which is called the, well, it's famous in Italy, funicular principle. The funicular principle, which applies to taking a rope and dropping it across a crevasse, and you put pins on either side of the crevasse, and you build a rope bridge. And when you're walking across it, you dance wonderfully, because the very nature of the system does it for you. And he understood that this was not merely a clever trick, but this was a universal physical principle which superseded the notion of the sphere and circle. Now, he's also known for a chapel, a Pace chapel in Florence. It's a wonderful instrument. It's a tuned chapel, absolutely tuned. If you sing in there, it'll sing back to you. It's a beautiful piece of work. It's the same principle of Brunelleschi. Now, this was also the kind of thinking which characterized the achievements of the founder of modern science, also a Florentine gentleman, at least in part of his career, known for Florence, Nicholas of Cusa, my favorite scientist, one of my favorite theologians, at the same time. And this concept shows that the exhibits, as in the Pace Chapel or in the Santa Maria del Fiore in the cupola, it demonstrates that what we call art and science coincide in principle. That's the virtue of the argument made by the questioner. Precisely that. There is no difference. In point of fact, much more important to say about it is that this kind of development shows a connection between science and art, classical art in principle. What's that connection between these two phenomena, classical art and classical science? Well, the principle is simple, that all creativity, human creativity, is based on this principle. The art of science depends upon the art of creativity, human creativity. Human creativity is explicitly artistic, not physical. It belongs to the Department of Physics, yes, but it's in the imagination. It's in the principle of metaphor, as typical of the whole principle. The human powers of creativity, which we know as science, are born in art. And the great principles of art, as exhibited by the case of the Pace Chapel, which is a miracle in itself, and by Brunelleschi's development of the cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore. So therefore, there is no difference between science and art. Science is a product of classical art. So therefore, my dear questioner, you are absolutely right.
For anyone who doubts what is possible in the future, we need only look at the towering achievements of the past. Only a few hundred miles from here are some of the great cities of Europe, teeming centers of commerce and culture. Each of them is full of reminders of what human drive and imagination can achieve. Centuries ago, at the time of the Renaissance, skilled craftsmen and laborers looked upwards and built the structures that still touch the human heart. To this day, some of the greatest structures in the world have been built hundreds of years ago. In Italy, the citizens once started construction on what would be a 140-year project, the Duomo of Florence. Incredible place. While the technology did not yet exist to complete their design, city fathers forged ahead anyway, certain that they would figure it out someday. These citizens of Florence did not accept limits to their high aspirations, and so the great dome was finally built.